Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. My dad doesn't know that I heard him tell another kid that he wished he was his son. So I gave him what he asked for, and now I treat him like a stranger. My dad, 45, is really into cars, and his dad is also into cars. My grandpa used to work in a mechanic shop, and my dad learned to work on cars with him. They can talk for hours about different car models and engines, and tell stories about cars they've worked on. I, 17, am not really into cars. My dad tried to get me into fixing up cars with him. However, talking about cars and working on them for fun, I'm just not into it. I always thought my dad was okay with me not being a car guy. 5 months ago, we got new neighbors who moved next door. It's a married couple, and their nephew Mason, 16, lives with them. Mason and I go to school together. At first, I helped show him around school until he got comfortable and made his own friends. He and I still talk, but we don't hang out. Mason is like my dad, and Grandpa, he's obsessed with talking about cars and has a whole list of cars he wants to drive and own one day. He would come over with his aunt and uncle, and a lot of times Mason and his uncle would hang out with my dad in the garage. Sometimes I'd be there too, but usually it's just them. My dad usually works on his project car in the garage every other weekend for a couple of hours. For Father's Day this year, he said he wanted to be able to work on his car all day uninterrupted, which my mom agreed to. Whenever he works on his car, he leaves the garage door open. Mason has been coming by when my dad works on it for the past couple of months. He talks to my dad and sometimes helps him out with smaller stuff related to the car. I don't really care. My dad does other stuff with me, but on Sunday I went to ask him something when he was in the garage with Mason. The door from the house to the garage was open, and they were talking. I was waiting by the door for a chance to speak because I didn't want to interrupt their conversation. My dad was praising Mason for whatever he did. Mason said he had done that with his dad, and my dad told Mason his dad would be proud of him. Then he said Mason is the kind of son that he wanted to have. I don't know why, but that really hurt to hear. I never thought that me not being into cars was an issue for my dad. I knew he still loved me, but I guess it's not enough. I didn't say anything and just went back to my room. He doesn't know that I know what he said. I've been ignoring him since then. I still answer him when he asks me questions or tells me to do something, but I just don't want to talk to him anymore. He and my mom have asked me if something is wrong, but I lie and say no. I thought they would just let it go, but a few days ago I messed up and told my older sister, 19. Now she's not talking to my dad either, and she's being a lot meaner to him about it. But I made her promise not to tell anyone the reason, so she's keeping her word. It's really tense in our house right now. My parents keep asking us why we're mad at our dad, but neither of us are answering. I feel like maybe I should just let it go and go back to the way things were. I really don't want to, though, when my dad is disappointed in who I am. Am I wrong if I don't forgive my dad? Update 1. So I guess my post was put up on TikTok, and my inbox was flooded with a bunch of new comments and DMs. There are too many to read, but I appreciate everyone telling me that I'm not wrong for not wanting to forgive my dad, because it still hurts knowing he said that regardless of why he said it. I got a lot of questions, but I'll answer two important ones. My dad did ask to be left alone to work on his car, but it's not because he didn't want to spend Father's Day with us. We had a special breakfast for him and gave him his gifts in the morning. The incident happened in the late afternoon. My mom usually wants to be left alone to work on her art projects or read one of her books on Mother's Day too. It's not that they don't want to spend the day with us, they just like to be able to focus on their hobbies without having to worry about household or family duties for a few hours. It's normal in my family for my mom and dad to give each other breaks or a day off sometimes. Another thing is my dad didn't invite Mason to work on the car with him. He did tell Mason a while back that if the garage door is open, then Mason is free to walk in and chat. That's what Mason usually does. My dad doesn't talk to him outside of when Mason comes over by himself or with his aunt and uncle. I don't think my dad even has Mason's number. They're not really close, they just both like cars. I know most people told me to tell my mom or my dad or both about what I heard. I was kind of hoping the tension would go away and just be forgotten, which I know is dumb and not realistic. But I really didn't want to have that awkward conversation, so I just kept quiet. Things got really bad today. My sister and I were still mostly ignoring our dad. My mom kept asking us a bunch of questions and guessing reasons why we were mad. I thought she gave up, but earlier today she said we were going to have a family game night, which we never really do. I really didn't feel like doing that, but I was going to stay there and just deal with it. However, my sister told my mom we wouldn't be joining if Dad was there. My mom asked why, but my sister just said he knows what he did. So my mom went to talk to our dad, and like an hour later, she made us all sit down in the living room to talk. My dad was mad. He told us that we needed to say whatever was on our minds because now our mom was asking if we caught him cheating on her or something. She was running out of theories for why we were mad. To be fair, she guessed it right on the second day, asking if he had said something to make me mad or upset. But I lied and said no. At the time, she said she knew it had something to do with me because I was mad at him first. So I finally told her what I overheard my dad say. My mom was shocked, and my dad immediately denied it, which really sucked because if he thought it and said it out loud, he could at least have the courage to admit it. But he didn't. He kept saying he didn't say that, but I told him I know what I heard. He tried to lie and say that what he said was that Mason's dad would be proud of him and that if Mason was his son, he'd be proud of the kind of person he was. That's a lie. He didn't say that. My sister got mad and told him to stop gaslighting me. Then they argued for a couple of minutes until my mom stopped them. My mom asked me if I was sure of what I heard, and I said yes. I told her exactly what he said to Mason. Your dad would be proud of you. I know I would be. You're exactly the kind of son I wanted to have. I know that because I keep hearing my dad's voice saying it over and over in my head. I've been hearing it whenever I look at him since that day. My mom turned to my dad and started yelling at him for saying that. So my dad finally admitted it, but said that I misunderstood him. He says he was just trying to make Mason feel better because Mason was sad and kept talking about his dad who passed away because it was Father's Day. My dad wasn't trying to put me down or say I was a disappointment to him. He said he was sorry and tried to hug me, but I was honestly mad that he denied it at first, so I didn't let him. My mom didn't accept his reasoning either. She said that Mason, his aunt, and uncle aren't invited anymore, and that we're just going to be neighbors from now on, and that's it. I feel bad because they didn't do anything wrong, but my mom kept going and telling my dad that he needs to stop spending so much time on his stupid car and start paying more attention to his family. He really doesn't spend a lot of time on it, maybe like 2 days out of the month for 3 to 4 hours. I think she was just really mad at him, which is what I was worried about. So my dad shouted that he'll just get rid of the car then, since everyone suddenly has a problem with his hobby. He left for my uncle's house after that, and I don't think he's coming back tonight. I feel really bad. I should have just let it go. I really want to, but I can't. If he hadn't tried to lie and had just said sorry, maybe I would have accepted his apology and this would be done. I'm not even really mad anymore. I just feel like a failure. I wish I could have just been more into cars, then this whole thing would have never happened. Sorry it's not a happy update, but a lot of people were asking for one. I hope he comes back home soon. Update 2. The situation at home has been really tense lately. After the confrontation, things only seemed to get worse. My dad didn't come back that night, and his absence was felt deeply. My mom has been trying to hold things together, but the atmosphere is anything but normal. My sister and I are still distant from him, and it's hard not to notice the strain on everyone. The day after the argument, my dad returned home, but things remained strained between us. He tried to approach me a couple of times, but I wasn't ready to talk. I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to resolve things, but another part was still hurt by the fact that he denied what he said and tried to twist it into something it wasn't. It's as if the trust between us was broken, and I wasn't sure how to mend it. My mom has been sticking to her decision about Mason and his family. They haven't been over since the argument, and the once lively garage sessions with my dad are now a stark reminder of what's missing. My dad has been spending less time in the garage, focusing instead on household chores and trying to be present, but the damage is done. It feels like every attempt he makes to connect with us is overshadowed by the unresolved hurt and the tension that lingers in the air. I've been trying to figure out how to move forward. It's not just about forgiving my dad, it's also about finding a way to heal from the hurt. I've been talking to my sister more, and she's been a great support, even though our relationship with our dad is still rocky. We are both trying to understand what we need from him and from each other to feel whole again as a family. In the meantime, my dad has started to show more interest in the things that matter to us, not just his car. He's been asking me about my interests and trying to be involved in activities I enjoy. It's a small step, but it feels like a genuine effort to bridge the gap. I'm cautiously hopeful that with time, we can rebuild the trust and find a new balance where everyone feels valued. We haven't had another family game night or anything like that, but there have been small positive changes. My mom and dad are working on their communication, and there are fewer arguments. It's a slow process, but I'm beginning to see glimmers of improvement. Ultimately, I'm still struggling with the pain of what was said, but I'm learning that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting or ignoring the hurt. It means finding a way to rebuild our family dynamic and understanding that forgiveness is a journey. I'm hopeful that with continued effort and honest conversations, we can find our way back to a more connected and understanding family. Update 3. Things at home have started to settle a bit, but the atmosphere is still delicate. After the confrontation, my dad took some time to cool off and reflect. He's been trying to rebuild the trust between us, and while it hasn't been easy, there are signs that things might be improving. Dad's been making a more consistent effort to be involved in family activities. He's joined us for meals more often and has even participated in some of the things my sister and I enjoy, like movie nights and board games. It's clear he's trying to make up for the distance that grew between us, and his attempts, though sometimes awkward, are sincere. One weekend, my dad surprised us by planning a family outing. He chose a hiking trail we had talked about trying for a while. It wasn't an elaborate gesture, but it was a step in the right direction. The hike was quiet at first, with everyone unsure of how to interact, but as we walked, the conversation started to flow more naturally. It felt good to be outside and away from the tension of the house, and for a few hours. At home, the garage is still a reminder of the unresolved issues, but it's no longer the focal point of our interactions. Dad has been working on his car less frequently, and when he does, he's more mindful of balancing it with family time. He's also been open to discussing other topics and interests, trying to show that he values our passions too. My mom has been supportive throughout this process, encouraging open communication. She's also been a bit more relaxed about the family dynamic, which has helped ease some of the tension. We've had a few conversations where we all shared our feelings honestly, and while they were emotional, they were also cathartic. It's not perfect, but it's a start. My sister and I have been trying to rebuild our relationship with Dad. We're still navigating how to express our feelings and how to move forward without harboring resentment. There are days when it's easier and days when it's hard to forget the hurt. But overall, there's a cautious optimism that things can get better. My dad has apologized again, this time without any denials or excuses. He's acknowledged that what he said was hurtful and that he understands why it affected me deeply. His honesty and willingness to own up to his mistakes have made it easier to start mending our relationship. While things aren't entirely back to normal, there's a sense of hope that we're moving in the right direction. The road to repair is slow, but we're taking steps to heal and rebuild. I'm learning to balance my feelings of hurt with the effort to forgive, and I'm hopeful that with time, our family can find a new way to connect and support each other. Update 4. The past few weeks have brought a mix of progress and setbacks. The initial tension in our home has eased somewhat, but the path to healing is proving to be more complex than I anticipated. Dad has continued his efforts to bridge the gap. He's been more present, attending family dinners and engaging in conversations about topics other than cars. One evening, he asked if I wanted to join him for a movie, a gesture that felt more like an attempt to reconnect than a casual invitation. We watched a film together, and though the conversation afterward was limited, it was a step toward normalcy. On the other hand, the underlying issues are still there. We haven't fully addressed the emotional impact of what was said. My sister and I are trying to navigate our feelings, and while we are making an effort to interact more with Dad, it's clear that the hurt hasn't completely faded. There are moments when the old tension resurfaces, especially when we are reminded of the garage and the times Dad used to spend there with Mason. Mom has been a crucial part of this process, helping to mediate and encourage open communication. She's been particularly supportive in urging Dad to understand the full scope of the impact his words had on me. She's also been working on improving the family dynamic, organizing activities that allow us to spend quality time together without the heaviness of recent events hanging over us. One weekend, Mom organized a family barbecue. It was a casual outdoor affair with good food and a relaxed atmosphere. Dad participated fully, helping with the grilling and joining in the casual conversation. It was a nice change of pace, and for a few hours, the sense of normalcy returned. There were no deep discussions about the past incident, but the shared experience was a positive step forward. Despite these efforts, there are still days when the old wounds feel fresh. I'm finding it challenging to balance my desire to move forward with the lingering feelings of disappointment. Dad's attempts to reconnect are genuine, but they sometimes feel like a band-aid on a deeper issue that needs more time to heal. My sister and I are still working through our feelings. We've had a few heart-to-heart talks about our dad and how we're processing everything. It's been helpful to have her support, and it's a reminder that we are all navigating this difficult situation together. As for Dad, he seems to be more aware of the emotional landscape of our home. He's been making an effort to show that he values each of us, and while it's clear that he's trying, it's also evident that there's still work to be done. We've agreed to seek family counseling, which I hope will provide us with a structured way to address the underlying issues and improve our communication. The journey isn't over, and there are still days when it feels like we're taking one step forward and two steps back. But there's a growing sense that we're all committed to making things better. The road to recovery is long, but there's hope that with continued effort and support. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.